Hi, just a quick explanation about validity, just to clarify some student questions. So first we're going to talk about internal validity, which I like to think of as accuracy. It can help you remember what it's about. Internal validity is accuracy. So the real question here is, can we trust our results? First question, how well are the variables controlled? Controlled just means how are we isolating them, or what the things that we're looking at. So if we want to look at the difference between treatment and no treatment, how well do we control that between two groups? Is one group that we think is not getting treatment, are they really not getting treatment? And is the other group actually getting the treatment, for example? Okay. So then the second one is, do we trust the measurement of the variables? So the way that we're measuring, is that are we actually measuring the thing we think we're measuring? And then, is that measurement accurate? Okay, so if you stand on a scale, you think you're measuring weight, right? If you get on that scale and it tells you that you weigh 20 pounds, that scale is not measuring weight accurately, right? Also, if you get on one time and it says you weigh 100 pounds and the next time it tells you you weigh 150 pounds, it's also not a good measure. So same in psychology, we can look at our measurement tools and consider whether or not that's really the right thing to use to measure. So that's part of internal validity, okay? And then if we think about conclusions, meaning within our study, we found that a treatment worked. Okay, so the way we measured worked is that there was improvement in symptoms. So maybe less anxiety after the treatment, right? Compared to the control group that had maybe the same amount of anxiety. Right? So how confident are we in that? And are there alternate explanations? So maybe there was something different about the two groups, and that's why anxiety decreased instead of the treatment. So how confident are we that it was actually the treatment that made the difference? So all of the things we can do to control an experiment are the things that help us be more confident in that. Okay, so how accurate is it? How sure are we that we measured what we wanted to and that our results are true? Okay, and so the higher control that we have in our study, the more confident we are in these kinds of things. So then external validity is all about generalizability, which means, do our results mean anything in the real world? Okay, so if we have a highly controlled study in a lab or in some sort of very controlled setting, we need to think about how much that's going to mean something later. So in my example of an anxiety treatment, you need to think about, who are the participants? So if we are studying only 30-year-old Latinx individuals, who are heteronormative, okay, and we apply one group gets a treatment for anxiety and the other group doesn't. And we compare those and we find out that, yes, indeed, the treatment helped with their anxiety, or we think that it did. Who can we say that our treatment is helpful for? Can we say our treatment is helpful for a 75-year-old white man? Can we say it's helpful for a 5-year-old child with learning differences? So again, who are the participants and who can we generalize to, right? And then how natural is the lab setting? So the setting for the experiment, how close is it to the real world? How real is it? So if we're just bringing people into a very highly controlled situation because we want that high internal validity, we are sacrificing a little bit in our generalizability. Okay, so it's all about a balance. So often in experiments, a researcher will control very highly the first time, and then they will go out and loosen the control, so less internal and more external. So maybe we'll study children in a very controlled lab setting first, and then we'll go into a school and try to do the same thing and see if we can replicate those results in a more natural setting. Okay, and so then again, how confident are we in our conclusions? So are there alternate explanations? Always something to ask of research studies, and it applies to both internal and external validity. And here we're talking about how confident are we that when we concluded that a treatment works or something else, how confident are we that it's not because of something else, right? So you're always going to want to look at that when you're considering how much you trust your conclusions. So in sum, lots of decisions to make when you're designing a research study. You need to consider the balance between internal and external validity. You cannot have good external validity without decent internal. Okay, so you're not going to be able, if you have a really messy study, you're not really going to be able to make any generalizations, right? And then finally, I just wanted to make the point that you can be a smart consumer of information. So consider this not just for this course, but for everything else you do. When you're reading media reports and the big headlines about research or big headlines about anything, it's always important to look at the details and how was this study done or how was that conclusion made. So for example, I saw the other day a headline that said, outbreak at a school, right? And then the whole article was just all about different schools and how many COVID cases they had. The outbreak school that they were talking about had 2 cases. So again, important to read the fine details for any piece of information that you are looking at. And so learning more about internal and external validity of studies will help you evaluate in the future, a claim that is made by media or by doctors or by, scientists who are telling you that, something will help you, lose weight or be healthier, right? So you want to look at the studies and think about how valid they really are and whether they actually apply to you. If those participants, are like you enough that you can generalize to yourself. So, okay, thanks for listening.